We have been focusing on renaming fractions as decimals and percents. Today we're going to kind of take it and put it in more real-world situations with sports statistics and taking tests and grades and what percentage or fraction the student got correct. So let's start off with a little review. Take a look at these fractions and using a calculator, try and turn them into both a decimal and a percent. Go ahead and pause your video now and do these. Okay, so let's see how you did. If the star wants to go, there it goes. So, the first one, we got a decimal of 28.5714%. But we don't need all of these extra numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the number directly to the right, right here, and this is a 5. Because it is a 5, we are going to go ahead and round up. Remember, we round up numbers that are 5 and above. So this fraction, or this decimal from this fraction right here, rounds to 29%. Over here, on the other hand, we have a number that is 0, which is less than 5. So this does not round up. It stays at 73%. Here, our decimal is 71.1864, and this is the same as the last one, and you don't need to round up as well. Here, we have 4.2553, and this does not round either. Now, how did we get these decimals? Because when we type this in our calculator, it doesn't always start off as 28.5714%. It should start off looking something more like this. Hopefully my handwriting is easy to read. But for this to be able to turn into a percent, we need to multiply it by 100, or move the decimal place over 2 spots to right here, and this would be our new decimal point right there. So same thing here, when you type it in a calculator, 57 divided by 78, this should pop up. And so on and so forth. And so we just multiply this number times 100, which moves our decimal point place over 2 spots to equal this one. And then to turn that into a percent, you just round the number and add the percent sign. So down here, this would be the same thing. I think you guys kind of get the idea. Alright, these are more simple fractions that you should not need your calculator for. 1/2, think of 1/2 of the whole. Or in money terms, 50 cents out of $1, which would be 0.5 in decimal form, or 50%. Same thing over here. If you're thinking of fourths, I think it's easier to think of them in terms of quarters. So this would be, let's see if you can get it. You think you have it in your head? Decimal and percent? Think quarter. This becomes 0.25, or 25 out of 100, and then 25%. So think you have 25 cents out of $1 if you have 1/4, 25% out of 100%. Same thing over here, you can think dimes with 1/10. So if you have 1 out of 10 dimes, how much money do you have? You have 10 cents, or 0.10, 10 out of 100. The 1 is in the 10th spot. And then you have 10%. So these are ones that are a little easier that we shouldn't need our calculators for, and we should sort of start to get familiar with in our heads. These get a little more challenging, but these are ones that still it should be pretty simple without the use of a calculator. So I'm going to give you a chance to kind of work on these. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can get the answer. Alright, how'd you do? 3/5. What is this in decimal and percent? 0.6 or 6/10 or 60%. So 5s are a little more difficult. How do we get this? It might be easier to look at this in terms of nickels. So it takes 20 nickels to get $1, 25-cent pieces. And if you think of this, then you can multiply the 5 by the 20 to get 100. And if you do that, you multiply the 3 by the 20 to get 60% or 6/10. The 3/4 is kind of like the one from the previous page. So 3/4 would be 75 cents or 75%. And this one is a lot like the first one on this page. So it's 2/5. What is this in decimal or percent form? This is actually 4/10 or 0.4, 40%. And we can do this the same way. You can think of it in nickels. Or another way to do it is you can times this 5 here by 2 to make it out of 10, which makes it a fraction that we're a little more familiar with. But remember, if we multiply this bottom number right here by the 2, we have to do the same thing to the top. So this becomes, I keep forgetting I have the pen here, sorry guys. This fraction is equal to 4/10. And this is a little more familiar to us, and it's easier to turn that into a decimal or a percent. Alright. Here we start to get a little more challenging with our fractions, so go ahead and pause the video again and see if you guys can attempt this on your own. Alright, how do you think you did? 19 out of 20. This would be 95% or 95 out of 100, 95 hundredths. So, how do we get this? We can think of this as well in terms of nickels because it takes 20 nickels to have $1, and if you're missing one nickel up here, you're 5 cents away from $1, so it would be 95 cents or 95%. We could also multiply this by, actually no, we're going to skip that. Okay, so this right here, did you guys get this one right? You think you got it? Should be pretty close to 100%, right? Because it's only 1 away from 25, 1 away from the whole, and it is 96%. And I would say that these right here, it's okay to go ahead and use your calculators for these. These are a little more challenging, okay? But what about this one? This one's a little different. Did you notice our numerator here is bigger than our denominator? What does this also look like? This was also a division problem. Fractions are just division problems. So what do you think this is going to be if it's 9 divided by 3? Just like you typed in your calculators here. 9 divided by 3. You think you got it in your head? It's a whole number. There's a hint for you. It's actually 3. 3 wholes. So instead of having pieces, we have holes here. And this, since it's bigger than 1, it's actually 300%. Because if this was 3 over 3 here like this, that would be equal to 1, which is equal to 100%. Alright, but since this is 3 wholes, and the decimal is 3, just pretend there's a decimal there, a decimal point there, and 300%. Alright, moving on. So, say Sally takes her math test, and she gets, let's say, 17 out of 19 questions, right? Odd number. So we're probably going to have to use our calculators for this one. But where would we begin? 17 out of 19 questions correct. So, to start this out, we're going to go ahead and turn it into a fraction. And we have to remember our pieces are 17 and our whole is 19. So it's 17 out of 19. What percentage would that be? Go ahead and pause your video now, see if you can figure that out. And you should have gotten the decimal 0.8947, which is about 89 hundredths. And so remember, we only need the first two numbers after the decimal point. And we look at this number to decide if we need to round. Do we need to round? Is the number greater than or equal to 5? No. This number is less than 5, so we don't need to round. And when turning this decimal into a percent, we multiply times 100. And an easier way to do that is just to move the decimal over 2 places to the right. So we would have 89%, and she got 89% of the questions right. Alright, that wraps up this video, and we will do more working with fractions and changing them into percents, but this time in class we will be using sports statistics, so that should make a lot of you very happy.